Alright guys, such comic again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The very first championship Sunday of the season, and some of the teams we expected to be competing for the $75,000 Monster Gaming CDL Invitational didn't even make it to the Sunday. A shock result yesterday with what happened to the Los Angeles Thieves. Loads of talking points there. OpTic absolutely dominating their way through the bracket yesterday. Falcons going down to none other than Doug sent to Martin. So many storylines and so much reaction as well. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We've got a lot to get into. We're going to start it. So the CDL hasn't started yet. It begins on the 5th, 7th of December weekends. But this weekend, yesterday, today, there's a kickoff tournament. This is fantastic. I'm glad that this has caused as much discussion in the community as it has, was watched as widely as it was yesterday, and I'm sure today as well. The COD League themselves are officially streaming it too. They put together this talent tier list for the upcoming season. No one in the F tier, 4 teams in the D tier, then Falcons, then the rest. Reasonable tier list, all things considered, given what we thought maybe going into this tournament, but certainly many would question whether Thieves ever really deserved to be alongside OpTic Texas. Couple of other thoughts elsewhere. Overload. Is it any good? We know that Scrap's not a big fan of it, but I don't think that his opinion is necessarily going to sway the opinion of the CDL and maybe the developers. I think that we will be getting Overload play this year. I think it is viable enough as a third mode. There are some tweaks to consider. Zinni has a couple of ideas. We believe that they are going to be messing around with in Season 1, having the device carrier have only a pistol, which I think would be an interesting approach. I don't think like the scoring right now is so heavy that it's outrageous as it stands, but I think it would be something to think about. The pistols are also pretty strong, so something to consider. I do agree though that over time the game should only end with a cap, right? I think really is how it should be. Marky B has an idea that the clock should actually stop when someone is holding the device, and then it basically prevents teams from just camping and wasting time and all this, which also I think would be an interesting idea. So some things to consider going on there. It's also notable that some of the teams, I'm not really sure why they don't do this, but they didn't stream the tournament. This is an unbelievably prime opportunity for the teams to broadcast the matches from their perspective. The CDL is running a tournament and it's saying, guys, if you want to stream your POV, you are free to do so. That never happens. People love watching the individual POVs of players and teams during this. Yeah, if you want to cover the minimap, okay. If you want to mute the comms, okay. But why not stream the POVs? Right? I thought it was a little bit. Now, for some players, I think that Bean said that they were like they just arrived to a hotel or something. It's like, okay, fair enough. Like logistically, yeah. But for LA Thieves, I thought it was confusing, right? Because Azuma says, why not stream it from their perspective? A load of the other teams are streaming it. OpTic looked like the best team yesterday. They're streaming it. And yeah, it worked out really well for Thieves, didn't it? Not streaming the tournament from their perspective because they certainly saved a lot of great strats, as we'll see in a second. And yeah, it was obviously interesting that Bush Gaming were playing Thieves and they weren't getting talked about because there were multiple matches simultaneously, which was unfortunate, but look, the players could turn the stream on, so it's obviously not just true for Thieves, it applies to the other teams as well. Shotzzy, I don't know if he was making a statement here precisely, but I thought it was interesting what he said. Shout out the CDL for letting us stream our pod for this tournament. Looking forward to this year, he says. So I don't know if that was a little bit of like, I don't know why these other teams aren't bothering with that. You don't get many opportunities to stream a tournament of this caliber, right? I mean, okay, it's not a 2K, it's not a 5K, it's a $75,000 tournament. Yes, it's online, but it's still a pretty big deal. The COD League are pretty happy about it in the replies. We also saw snipers get used yesterday. Now, this was very interesting. There were a number of particularly entertaining clips. This is one of them here on Den. Abuzah with a 1v2 takes a pretty easy shot onto Kismet and then snipes Selim out of the sky. And yeah, the sniper is pretty good for sure. And we saw some other shots as well, such as this one. We didn't really get Dashy's POV on this one, but Slasher in a 1 versus 1 gunfight here against Dashy. Dashy slides to the left-hand side, switches to the sniper, hits the wall bounce, and just slaps him across the side, and then he goes on and shoots his body as well. Formal was loving it, which I thought was hilarious, because we know that him and Slasher have, you know, a decade or so old rivalry, so I know that Formal was really enjoying this one. So look, I think it was great to see snipers in play. You know, they were allowed to use a smoke as well. The thing is, the pros, some of the pros will complain about this. I know that Formal also made a point that the pros, they GA things based on what's good or bad for them rather than what's actually good or bad for the game itself. Some pros will, I'm sure, be looking to get the sniper banned, but I don't know if all the teams are going to be so keen to agree to that this year, especially because my opinion always is, yeah, the sniper's pretty good. It's got a bit of aim assist, there's a bit of movement in this game to maybe get around it. You can always pull out your own sniper to counter it, but how many snipers did we see per map per team, right? I mean, one, maximum, maybe two, if both teams had a sniper player, right? But it's not like the sniper comes out and all of a sudden, oh, because it's allowed, there's 8 snipers on the map. I mean, the closest we ever got to that was in World War II. Occasionally on USS Texas, you'd see teams pull out 2 snipers, one on each flank. Red Reserve liked to do it. And then the other team would sometimes pull out their own snipers to counter it. But it's like, you're never going to see the sniper. It's not that good that it's so prevalent. Like, in Counter-Strike, if you had infinite money, the teams would, you know, often, not always, but, you know, you might just buy 5 AWPs on defense, on CT side, and just post up. Whereas, because in Counter-Strike, you have to pay more money for the AWP, right? Which is why they're able to balance things easier than we are in COD. But in COD, is the sniper that good that you'd pull out 4 of them? Like, no, you never would do that. It would never make any sense. So I think that's my opinion on the sniper. I hope that it stays. But let's talk about some of the matches. This was very notable straight out of the gate. So Thieves played TJ, right? So it was Scrap v TJ, Thieves versus Telluride Bush Gaming, and it went all 5 maps here. So they won the exposure, they won the den, pretty dominant. It went to a Scar final map where they won. But it was far from a demolition job, right? They got the job done, but it was far from a demolition job, so immediately there were some heads getting turns. It's going to be a very entertaining year for content, right? The guys at Bush Gaming, Barstool basically, they were giving their perspective, their frustration about the way that things had gone, the level of performance, the fact that there was no streaming from the CDL, all that type of stuff. So we're in for an entertaining year, that is for sure. But as Zuma says, it's like, well, hang on a second, Thieves were putting them in the S tier, and they've gone last map with the Challengers team. It ain't a great start to the tournament, and that continued as well. Surge then played Omit Brooklyn and lost in 5 maps. Now, this may not come as a tremendous surprise. Obviously, Legends is still picking up the game. We're going to see some more thoughts on that in a second. Again, Fellow's team, he's always going to find a way, Fellow, to make a competitive force. But yeah, Surge are probably the worst they're ever going to be right now. Can they get good enough is a very good question. There is talk that Legends still using an Xbox controller. Shotzzy is convinced that that puts you at a mega disadvantage. So look, maybe Legends switch to the PS5 controller, give it a couple of weeks. We'll see if he's in a better spot, because there has been a fair little bit of talk about that. Then we had a couple of very interesting series, especially involving the Riyadh Falcons, right? So they played FaZe. This was Simp against Celium, effectively. And, well, this was really Abuzah having a masterclass here. Great series. Great start for him, I think, to his time on FaZe. I think he's been getting better the last couple of years. Very promising as a player, I think, this season especially. And look, I didn't expect Falcons to be that good. Yesterday was pretty terrible, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think they'd be very good. I mean, I said it on the Dope Chick show this week. I'm like, I'm looking forward to seeing them play, because I was pretty convinced that they were gonna be bad this event. And well, they were probably worse than I thought they'd be, to be honest. And we'll talk about the real key series to that one in a second. Shotzzy then pops a lovely little 3-piece here against the Stallions. They had no match for OpTic in the very first round. It was a hot 3-0. I think it's actually kind of scary how good Huke is at this game. We thought that Huke maybe last year was his year, right? What a year he had in Black Ops 6. What a player. And he's turned up to BO7. People kind of thinking, okay, well, you know, BO6 was a great comeback year for Huke, game that really suited him well, but that's also true this year as well. And he was unbelievable yesterday. Like, he looked like the best player in the world, Huke. And with the new meta, with the changes, the M15 no longer being quite as good, the Drazah becoming viable, all of a sudden, OpTic SMG line looks right back in the mix. But this was one of the other key storylines. If you guys aren't familiar with what was happening here, you had Sensor and Team War, they were playing against the Falcons, right? So they found themselves in the losers bracket here after losing in the first round. This was Doug, search and destroy, 1v1 against Celium, hits a wall bounce, hits a slide, guns Cell, defuses the bomb, and eventually goes on to win the series. And this was like, you couldn't write this. You genuinely couldn't write it. That Doug comes back out of nowhere, goes to this T-War team that was next threat until a few days ago, and then beats Falcons, right? Like, it's genuinely an unbelievable story, and does so in the most Doug Martin fashion ever by dropping like a 0.7 KD. Yeah, 0.69 he had this series, but Sensor, DiamondCon, Johnny, and Standy, great result from Johnny here. I mean, he had a really good series. Honestly, like, I was surprised not to see Johnny get picked back up again, I think, into the league this year. A player that I think if I was running a team, I would have absolutely spoken to at the very least. But Falcons, Cell, Exnid, Kiz, and Pred, this was a very rough one. I mean, to be fair, Pred's entire day yesterday was not great at all. It's not like any of those guys had an especially good time. But yeah, to get, I mean, it's the kind of numbers are the wrong on the last one here, but they got reverse swept by Doug, right? Like, I mean, yeah, it's an online tournament. I do think, generally speaking, people put a little bit too much weight into these tournaments, right? The meta's just changed quite substantially. We have 1 week into the game's life cycle in terms of practice. So, you know, this is not champs. Things will change a lot. It definitely is a very good representation, though, of where the teams are right now. Is it going to be relevant necessarily for where the teams are going to be in a couple of months? Not necessarily, but in terms of where the teams are right now, it's a great point, and we're seeing where, well, Falcons are with respect to teams like Doug Martin. He went on to play Toronto and got absolutely pissed on, but, you know, he did his job, right? He did his job on the day. We then saw LA Thieves. They went to play Gentlemates, who, well, they're playing as Augless, but the Gentlemates team to be confirmed soon. Neptune was on an absolute tear yesterday, and they 3-0'd Thieves. So Kenny had a 0.78 this series, so Thieves dropped down to the losers bracket. FaZe then took down Toronto in 5. Again, good series from Abuzah, competitive series overall. JoeDeceives is also going to be great to watch, I think, this year. This was from the OpTic side. I mean, just another couple of highlights from Huke's perspective, how difficult it is to play against this guy right now because, well, he's just going to gun you basically no matter what happens. They 3-0'd the Ravens. Again, Huke had a 1.6. It just wasn't especially close. They even won the Surge 6-1 against Slash's team, which is difficult to always do. This was that series. I mean, Doug had a 0.67 in this one. Thieves took them down. So again, it's like, well, Thieves destroyed Team War, but Team War beat Falcons in 5. Not a great look. Then OpTic played FaZe, and this was a really important series. People were expecting this to be a banger, right? Like, damn, FaZe are looking pretty good. Not a team to count out this season. Simp's on really great form. Maybe this is going to be his year again. Shotzzy puts them in the mixtape. I mean, like, some of these gunfight wins were remarkable. And OpTic 3-0'd them in about 30 minutes, right? Like, this was dominant. Like, absolutely dominant. Mercules at a 1.7, 04 at a 0.6. Again, I think some questions early doors here about the SMG duo on FaZe with the Simp and 04 combination, right? Because, look, the idea was, I thought that Simp was going to step into like a full heavy slaying role again, and 04 was going to pick up the pieces. There were some questions having seen the series, you know, should they have got Neptune right and all this? Again, people are going to talk very quickly after what is an important but fundamentally very early days online tournament. So I think it's too early to say that, oh, Thieves, you know, I saw some people saying you got to drop Kenny. I'm like, mate, it's been a week, right? Like, come on. At least, okay, you might be right in a couple of months, but, you know, I'm not saying necessarily that's wrong. And Kenny was getting hawked on yesterday. I mean, here he is getting pieced up by Crimp. Crimp hits the wall bounce, and then he guns him. We also saw him get pieced up by Caesar Skies. So this was Skies with the sniper rifle, gets the first kill onto HyDra, misses the shot onto Kenny, but then bounces around the corner and guns him with the pistol. So it was not a pretty day, and Thieves get bopped out of the tournament by G2 Minnesota. Estrel with a 1.6, Mumba with a 1.3, and Kenny, as you see on the thumbnail, had a 0.54. So yeah, this was bad, and yeah, Kenny did not have a great day, but it was also true for the rest of his team. HyDra is putting the team on the backpack, and well, they all got slammed. So yeah, we've seen scrims were pretty competitive the last few days, but when it comes to an actual tournament situation, that's where you really see where the teams are. And well, we saw why by Thieves are not considered to be in the same ballpark right now as to the level that OpTic Texas are performing at. Kenny says, played the worst COD we could have today. GG's. We've got to get back in the lab. So look, the season hasn't started, but this is the way the bracket looks. So Thieves are gone in 8th place, so with the Ravens. These other teams 12th, these teams 16th. You know, Falcons out 16th, Breach out 16th as well. They lost to Surge in the end, so, you know, not a great start for them. August and OpTic, they're in the upper finals. That's OpTic versus Gentlemates. Very excited for that one. Cloud9, they made a pretty good run so far, so impressive stuff from them, even though, you know, they beat Boston, then they beat Omit Brooklyn, so it is what it is. But they'll play Toronto. FaZe play G2, so I think early doors would probably expect an OpTic, Gentlemates, FaZe and Toronto top 4. That may not happen, but if it does, that's not far off expectations, but it certainly is a far way away from what we thought Thieves might be doing. So the tournament continues today, only a few matches remaining. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.